So, as many of us know, Cleveland is truly a sports town, and we are on our way to adding to our sports roster thanks to our speaker today, Michael Murphy. Michael Murphy is the co-founder and CEO of Cleveland Soccer Group, which was founded with the goal to bring soccer to our community and is working to launch the new Cleveland professional soccer team that will join MLS NEXT Pro in 2025. Previously, Michael served as president of Gravitas Ventures, where he was instrumental in growing the company's distribution footprint. And prior to joining Gravitas Ventures in 2007, he was captain in the U.S. Army, where he served on active duty as a judge advocate. In 2005, he was deployed with the 3rd Infantry Division in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, where he was awarded the Bronze Star Medal. Michael is a member of the Cleveland chapter of Young Presidents Organization, a member of the U.S. Soccer Development Council, on the board of Boys Hope, Girls Hope of Northeast Ohio, and on the advisory council for the Northeast Ohio Women's Sport Alliance. In addition, he coaches track, basketball, and soccer at St. Dominic's School in Cleveland. He is also a graduate of our Leadership Cleveland class of 2017. And Michael, I see quite a few of your classmates here today with you. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Please welcome Michael Murphy.
Thanks so much, Rachel. Clearly, 2017 best class ever with all these smiling faces. I have to get out of the gate with that. Well, it's such a honor and privilege to be with you guys today. And I loved my experience 5 years ago or so with Leadership Cleveland. Happy to fill you all in with what's going on with soccer in Cleveland because I'm super excited about it. I'm really excited about it. But before I get there, some of you Leadership Cleveland classmates of mine knew me as a executive in film and media. We ran a film distribution company called Gravitas Ventures for the last 15 years. We sold the company a couple times in 2017 and ultimately sold all of it in 21 last November. And I became an employee of Gravitas for the first time. And I was starting to think about what's next for me. The company was a Los Angeles-based company, but in 2019, we intentionally moved the company back to Cleveland, the whole company. And I'm down here in Ohio City. We're in the Van Roy Coffee Building, and we bought the second floor. We wanted to be part of the Cleveland business community. We wanted to be part of the Cleveland business fabric. And I didn't know what was next for me, but I wanted something meaty. I wanted something that was going to be third quarter of life type thing. I'm 45 years old and I could see myself doing something for the next 10, 15 years. And this soccer concept popped onto my radar a little over a year ago. And I started looking at it, but really the more I looked at it, the more I said, wow, I said, this could be it. Growing up, I thought for me to do something meaningful in Cleveland or be a leader in Cleveland, I'd have to get involved in public policy or even run for office or something like that. And the more I looked at soccer, the more I said, this is the game. I said, this global game could be transformative for not only Cleveland, but for the region. And I did a lot of diligence on this. When I go into something, I go deep. And I looked at leagues, and I looked at teams, and I looked at all the things that you need to take to really launch professional soccer in Cleveland, with the vision ultimately to be the North Star of this game and what that means in Cleveland. But more than that, it was kind of the right market. If you take a step back, Cleveland's the only top 20 market in the country without big-time professional soccer until now. I'm going to consider MLS NEXT Pro big-time professional soccer the way we're going to run it. But the vision has always been men's and women's professional soccer. And so we also are very active in pursuing an expansion team with NWSL, the National Women's Soccer League, which we hope to continue to work on. And as we formulate, facility plans, which include not only a stadium to play in, but also practice facilities, likely tied to sports medicine, and ultimately would love to see, a much larger soccer complex here. For those of you who are parents and maybe you have children that play soccer, you're probably driving either west to Sandusky, east to Geneva, or south to Lodi on your weekends. And I call it like the Cuyahoga County diaspora. We need to keep folks here, and we can build that right here, I think, over time. So it's the right market. It's the right time. Soccer continues to grow in this country and around the world. And the World Cup is going to come to North America in 2026. It's going to come to the US, Canada, and Mexico. And the numbers that we think, if you look at the last time the World Cup was here, it was in '94. And in '94, we smashed all attendance records. And we're going to, the 2026 World Cup will do it again with 48 teams. But the amount of people that became soccer fans between 1990 and '94 leading up to that major event, if you kind of extrapolate that and say that we're going to have a similar percentage from 2022 to 2026, we think it's going to be a net gain of about 35 million new soccer fans in this country. And so the timing is right. And then, you know, it's the vision. I think that it's men's and women's soccer is part of it. And what I wanted to spend most of the time here talking to this group about is what really, really gets me excited. It's kind of the you know, it's ambitious plan, but I think that soccer can tie Cleveland to a global community like nothing else. And I think over time, it's an interesting way to help repopulate the region. And let me start talking a little bit about this. When I first started looking at this, and I'm not a soccer savant at all, but I know some. And one of them was my theology teacher at St. Ignatius High School 30 years ago, Mike McLaughlin, who is, his avocation is soccer coach. And he's been incredibly successful at that. He's forgotten more about soccer today at noon than I will ever know. But I started talking to him this, and I said, what about this? What about that? What about being intentional about trying to bring professional soccer or young development talent to Cleveland from areas where we already have great ethnic communities, old school immigrants here, Croatians, Slovenes, Hungarians, Irish, German, or the newer Guatemalan, Salvadorian, Syrians. The common language is soccer. And how could we be very intentional about reaching out to the Salvadorian and building a pipeline and reaching out to the community here and saying, we're going to start to bring young talent here. And when they come, I need you to open your arms, matriarch and patriarch of the Salvadorian community, because it's going to be a pipeline. And over time, we want them to know that it's here to stay. And I went out and watched the Croatia-Argentina match out in Willoughby at a bar out there. I think it was called Soul. And I swear, 500 screaming Croatian fans in their checkered uniforms. It's just the tip of the iceberg. So that got me really excited on that. And then the other side of the global vision, I can share, right? I did 3 slides. Keep it simple. Of course, where'd it go? Let's see. There we go. 3 slides. I'm taking a step back here. This last year, it's kind of crazy. On November 15th, the United Nations came out and said their modeling suggested that there are now 8 billion people on this earth, which is just mind-blowing to me, but that's the number. And then FIFA, or beIN Sports, came out recently and said 5.4 billion people watched some of the World Cup that just happened. 67.5% of the world's population watched soccer. And Cleveland doesn't really have a seat at the table, a meaningful seat at the table in this global game. And I thought, this is really fascinating. How can we move this ball forward? And in addition to bringing talent here where we already have communities, this concept of sister cities is very interesting. I don't know how many of you all know about sister cities. Essentially, it was born, I think, about 1950. President Eisenhower suggested that our cities in the U.S. should start to form relationships with cities around the world, not federal or national diplomatic ties, but more of a diplomatic, citizen diplomatic tie. And I think one of the ideas was let the Holocaust never happen again, and let us keep an eye on the world. I think that was one of the rationales behind it. But since 1950, Cleveland now has 23 different sister cities around the world. There you go. There's our 23 sister cities around the world, including some major, huge cities and regions, including Lima, Peru, Taipei, Taiwan, Bangalore, India, the Silicon Valley of India. And I said, could we not use soccer, football, this global game, as something to really start to develop relationships, so something that's tangible and something that's accessible and something that's commonly understood, and reach out and say, hey, we've got our professional team. Bangalore. We know you have some professional teams. We'd like to form a relationship. Maybe it's easy. It's a home and away, or it's a friendly, or it's a dialogue. And upon that, you can really build. I went a little bit deeper and looked at these 23 sister cities. And in these 23 sister cities, there are 96 professional soccer clubs in those 23 sister cities, including 8 women's teams. And now I started getting really excited about this prospect and saying, hey, let's build small, but maybe by 2029, we could have a round robin of sorts, or dare I say a Cleveland World Cup of sorts, and bring these clubs in. I know there's going to be costs. I know there's going to be expense, but I think you have to start with something that's going to be really meaningful. And so that's where we're headed in my mind. And I'm really excited about it. I wake up every day. It's a meaty project that involves politics and a lot of money and sport and diversity. And so that's part of it. The other part that we're working on very closely also is leading into the 2026 World Cup. The United States Soccer Foundation, which is kind of they're both nonprofits, but it's more of an outreach than the United States Soccer Federation, has a goal to put 1,000 mini pitches in this country before the World Cup comes in 2026. And a mini pitch, I should have had a picture of it. It's essentially not a soccer field, but it's like on an old basketball court or an old tennis court or an old parking lot. And they build it's a hard surface with kind of fences and lights. And a lot of times they're in urban communities where this game, historically in this country, I'm going to paint with a broad brush, has been a more suburban game than an urban game. You look at our World Cup squads now, very diverse. It's changed a lot, but still the accessibility of soccer hasn't been there. And Cleveland has 0 mini pitches today. And so we want to be part of that, changing that. I've been working a lot with Justin Morrow, who is a Clevelander, had a very storied career at Toronto FC, played for the US national team, and most recently and notably started Black Players for Change in the MLS in the kind of the wake of George Floyd. And he's working to put a couple of mini pitches in, but we have a goal to get at least 10 of these in before 2026. So that's what's going on. It's a meaty project. It's a long-term vision. And I'm at 15 minutes. I was told I had 10 to 15 minutes, so I'll stop there and take questions, I guess, Rachel, or I'll turn it over to you. Maybe I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's move on to our questions. So from the initial announcement, what has been the reaction across the community? What have you heard?
It's been overwhelmingly positive. People are thrilled. They said, I've been waiting for professional soccer to come to Cleveland. We have a website, clevelandprosoccer.com, and there's get involved. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of folks have signed up, if not thousands at this point, saying, here's my email address, and they can click and say, I'm interested in NWSL, or I'm interested in, I used to coach, or I used to play. I'm interested, I've got kids. Where's the academy program? So we know that the support is here. I mean, that's a little bit anecdotal, but we've been running like a little bit of a campaign to help bring NWSL to Cleveland. We've seen some great posts about it, and from female athletes who say, hey, growing up, I had 3 brothers who could watch their players on TV. I had 3 brothers who could go buy their players' gear, online or at Dick's Sporting Goods, and I couldn't. And bringing a women's professional soccer team here can change all of that. And I truly believe that. So overwhelmingly positive.
And you mentioned just the complexity to make this happen. So who are your partners? Who are your collaborators? And how did you go about building those partnerships and collaborations?
Yeah. I'm building it right now today. This is how we're doing it. It's really retail politics. I'm taking a lot of breakfast meetings, a lot of lunch meetings, sharing this vision over and over and over again, because I think that's the best way to do it. But we've been fortunate to gain the support of our local leaders politically. The mayor's office has been great. I used to say county executive elect. Now I can say county executive. Chris Ronayne has been great, and his team, as well as the Greater Cleveland Partnership, David Gilbert over at Destination Cleveland and the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission have all been extraordinarily helpful in thinking through some of the issues that we have to face. And they get it. They get it that we are missing a soccer first facility to play in. And they're very excited to work with us to figure out how to make this work and how to finance this.
And speaking of finances, what is that anticipated funding model for bringing a team in?
There's many, many different ways to skin the cat here. Everything from finding committed reoccurring revenue from sponsorship, whether it's a naming rights of a stadium or the club, to a public-private partnership, to private debt, to equity investors. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be kind of an alphabet soup of a number of those as you try to put this capital stack together to get the project done.
And earlier you mentioned facilities. Do you envision a new facility or change a current facility to accommodate soccer?
Ultimately, we need a new facility here. I think in the short term, there have been in the short term, we may need to play somewhere else, and there's options that we have in and around Cleveland. But long term, to make this work, you need a soccer specific stadium, like every other good market. And we know the fan bases here. I mean, you go back in I think it was 1930s, 1940s. They used to fly over teams from Croatia and Germany for a weekend. They would draw 10,000 people here. We know that soccer works in this market. We know. I grew up watching the Force out at the Coliseum, and we have a little bit of like a hype video on the website. We've got a clip in there. They're saying 21,000 strong at the Coliseum, and we know the Cleveland Crunch, won over the hearts and minds of this city as well. And so the fan base is here. It exists. It's on us to kind of bring it all together with an eye towards 2026 and beyond.
And speaking of Cleveland Crunch, have there been any discussions around tying in with the Cleveland Crunch and get involved in the development of Major League Indoor Soccer League?
Yeah, I want to talk to everybody in town. I don't know all the players in town. The gentleman who runs the Crunch has reached out to me, and we're going to get a meeting on the books, just like anybody else who's got a stake in this game, because I know that there's been efforts before, and they failed before. They haven't succeeded. I don't want to say they failed, but they haven't come to 100% fruition. And I want to know why that was, and what we can do to really do this for Cleveland. This is a long-term vision that I think will really help the city and the region.
So as you start to look ahead at building and implementing the vision, what are some of those major anticipated challenges you see, and how are you working to overcome those?
I mean, the largest is probably figuring out, it's probably a 5-sided Rubik's Cube, if you will. There's a lot of different angles to get this thing done on the financing side and stakeholders, and who's going to own it and who's going to lease it. So those are all major opportunities and challenges. And I'm one that wants to think outside or paint outside the lines a little bit. And I think that whether it's a sister city idea or otherwise, will get us over the top.
So you made some mention around training and development and youth leagues. So can you spend a little bit more time talking about the vision of kind of the broader impact, and how might this benefit youth soccer in our area and some of the development that happens?
Sure. Well, I think Justin Morrow, who I alluded to before, gave an interview, and he said, I played all around this state and all around the city, but if I knew I wanted to go to the next level, I had to leave Cleveland, because we didn't have the infrastructure in place to kind of they call it a pro pathway, if you will, if you want to achieve that level. And ultimately, that's what we want to do on both the men's and women's side, is a pathway. In order to do so, you need, best-in-class facilities with best-in-class training, best-in-class medicine. We know we've got best-in-class medicine here between our hospital system. All of them are fantastic. And so hopefully we get to partner with, one or more of them, as well as, with a top trained facility that would have fields, some indoor and outdoor, because this is Cleveland, and you have to be aware that it's hard to play outdoor 12 months a year, even though some folks will still do it. And then it's about finding, the right spot. For me, as I sit here today, and probably someone will pull this Zoom up 2 years from now, like, he said this. No, look, I would love to see the stadium somewhere downtown, like downtown Cleveland. I don't want it too far east. I don't want it too far west. I don't want it too far south. This is, I think all of us here, no matter where we live, we consider ourselves Clevelanders. And so that's where I'd love to see it. And I think it's important to bring people back down to the central business district, back downtown, back somewhere around here. On the training facility sites or the practice facility sites, you've got a little bit more leeway. And there, I think it's important that ideally they be centrally located, easy to get to. So those are the type of like considerations that we're keeping in mind as we move forward.
What do you anticipate the economic impact to be for our community once this is kind of up and running?
In 3 months, I'll give you an exact number on that, because we have some studies going on. Other than to say it's going to be really big, I can tell you, but like, imagine, so like NWSL, the National Women's Soccer League, they have 12 teams in the league right now. They're going to 14. They've had unprecedented growth. And now, granted, Seattle and Portland, they're kind of like soccer markets, but they're drawing 20,000 fans for these games. San Diego's drawing 20,000 fans. The championship was played at Audi Field in Washington, D.C. as a neutral site between Portland and Kansas City, and they sold that out. They had almost a million people watch that game on, I'm not going to knock Paramount Plus, but it's it's one of the new wonkier sites. They'll get their own media rights deal eventually. I should talk about broadcast here for a second. So that's my background, is distribution. And the reason that we're so excited about MLS Next Pro, which is a brand new league within within MLS, which is the top league in the country, MLS Next Pro, is that we will avail ourselves of their TV deal, which starting at 2023 is a 10-year deal with Apple TV that will allow our brand of Cleveland soccer to be broadcast around the world ungeofiltered. So those 23 sister cities, to where we're bringing in talent, we can start to build a brand and really get it out there in a global nature. I mean, you look at the biggest brands in soccer, they're global brands, and that would be we're going to try and do that as best as we can right here in Cleveland. And I know from distribution, if you don't have a good distribution platform, you can have made the best independent film or documentary in the world. If you can't get it out there, no one's going to know about it. So it's kind of the same thinking there.
We spoke a bit earlier about those partnerships and some of the past teams. Are there potential partnerships to be had with the Columbus Crew and potentially being able to bring this a bit more across the state?
I'm thrilled that I'm calling it right now, it's going to be called like the I-71 rivalry. It'll be Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati, and we'll play each other. And you think about that for a second. Right now, Cleveland and Columbus really don't have a rivalry, right? We don't compete in basketball, football, baseball, hockey, and we can compete in soccer. And so that's something I'm really excited about. Yeah, no, look, I mean, the Haslam Sports Group has been very helpful making introductions, and that's the one really nice thing about this. It's been, I don't know, calling it, everywhere you go, there's been great introductions, and people are very positive about this vision, very positive about soccer, and willing to make an introduction. And where we have blind spots, we just keep asking questions to fill in those blind spots.
So what are some of those needs you have to truly fully realize the vision you have around bringing soccer to Cleveland?
I need a stadium. I need practice facilities. We need to figure out and really think about land that we have in this city. And I've talked to some of those folks I talked about on the front side, said, I don't have to have all the answers. If there's an area that we want to redevelop in Cleveland, southeast side of Cleveland, I'm just throwing that out there. I've heard Mayor Bibb talk about that. We can find an area over there. It might not be the perfect spot today, but let's use this to make it a perfect spot, 10 years from now, and let things grow around that. You saw that in Philadelphia, I think, where they built their stadium, was kind of in a undesirable area for development in Philadelphia initially. You've seen a lot of things boom from that. I think they were just in the championship this year. So totally open to all ideas. And like, this is so exciting to be talking to these type of leaders here, because hopefully folks will come in and be like, hey, have you thought about this? Or hey, have you thought about that? And anyone who wants to raise their hand and say, hey, I want to be on this like sister city committee, let's do it. This is how it's going to happen. I don't know exactly. You can look at the sister city. Oh, I've got a tie to Nigeria. Let's go make that connection. I just feel like, generally professional sports owners are also business folks. And so, imagine reaching out to Bangalore, India, and making that connection. Again, it's supposed to be one of the most business-friendly places in the world to do business in India, the Silicon Valley of India, and say, hey, we've got this manufacturing conundrum here in Cleveland. Can you introduce us to your high-tech folks? And all of a sudden, we've got a relationship there. And we all know how great Cleveland is. We talk about it all the time. We just need to show it again to the world. And this is a new way to show it to the world. And we might get some folks to relocate here. I'm confident in that.
Michael, how big is your team? And in addition to some of those connections you're looking for, how else can those of us on the call help you reach your vision?
Sure. So the team is small but mighty right now. We've capitalized the company, myself and my business partner, Nolan Gallagher, who's my business partner at Gravitas. He's staying as the CEO of Gravitas right now. We've capitalized the company. We have hired a number of consultants to help us get through this because, again, and the gentleman we hired launched Orlando City FC. He was instrumental in launching Louisville, instrumental in doing San Diego. So he started soccer clubs before, which is great, in helping us think through a lot of the items that we need to get through. But ultimately, we'll start to build out the team. We need to brand the team. One of the most exciting things one of the things I'm most excited about is the brand. We've got to come up with colors. We've got to come up with a name. We've got to come up with a crest. And I think that the community can be, for lack of a better term, a listening tour. And I want to go out and have some town hall meetings, whether virtual or in person, and listen to those, because I don't have all the answers, but I'd love to hear about that. And I think that brand and soccer is a little different than other sports in that it really draws people from really all walks of life. From what I've seen, and I was just at the World Cup. I was fortunate enough to be over in Qatar, and it just totally reinforced everything that I've been thinking about, what a global game this is and how exciting it is. We want to have a march to the match with a lot of loud fans, and hopefully we'll have a supporters group that takes on a life of its own as they do. And there's always this kind of relationship between the club, the official club, and the supporters group. You got to let them be autonomous. And I've learned that, but also supportive. And they're going to have opinions. You got to listen to those opinions along the way. So.
Well, we have time for one more question, and inquiring minds want to know, are there any thoughts on what that name might be for the team?
I don't have any. I don't have anything yet to put out publicly. It's interesting. A lot of clubs, if you look at them in Europe, are FC football club, or Real, which is like a royal word for royal, SC clubs. But then a lot of them in the US have taken kind of a different name, especially in the women's leagues. If you look at the Kansas City Current or the Pride in Orlando, and I think all things are in. It's gotta work, and so we'll test it and test it and test it, and hopefully we pick the right one.
Well, Michael, we are thankful for your time, and your passion and enthusiasm for bringing soccer to Cleveland is just so evident. And we look forward to seeing all that's to come over the next few years and being able to support soccer in Cleveland. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, everybody. Hope you guys have a great start to your new year. And I'm Michael at Cleveland. I'm Michael at clevelandsoccergroup.com for email. Or check us out, and I'd love to hear from you. So.